We'll have to see what they want in terms of draft as we jump into the first draft for this match. And there's already going to be the Zephyr spam, followed by the Lindas, meaning Superman is available on the table. Could be picked up by the side of Team Unknown for XD, and Superman and that of L'Oreal Unknown.
Okay, so I'm laughing right now because I can actually hear the producer from the back actually supporting the individual heroes and teams, so that is pretty funny. But I'll just basically say what I heard from our producer, and first off it's that she said, oh my gosh, Superman for Dexter. So I reckon Dexter must play a very good Superman. However, we will be seeing Dexter on Senio, and of course Kaz picking up that Murad.
Well, it's interesting to see here that the side of XD did go for the Joker pickup, and how do you feel about that? Superman was let through the ban phase, and yet they prioritized Joker over Superman. Do you think that's a fair call?
Well, I'll tell you the truth, right? For the side of XD Gaming, they can play the most off-meta heroes, but because they know the limitations, and like I said, they know what they want, either objectives or kills leading into objectives, they can't really just play all sorts of heroes. They have such a vast hero pool that it doesn't quite matter at all. As for the side of Unknown, Yawn getting picked up, that is a pick that I'm unsure of.
Yeah, there is the Yawn pick. We did see it previously last week. I'm not sure exactly how successful it was, but the rest of the team comp very much the meta, and I'd say that for both teams. However, for the side of XD, you do see that Alice pickup. I wouldn't say it's off meta per se, but just we've seen other prioritization in terms of that support role, that mage role. And that has gone to the fact that XD, you mentioned, can play these off-meta heroes, and that's what I love about commentating these games for XD, that although for this first game we see a lot of meta picks on both sides, it makes sense. You don't want to go and pick everything off meta, because then, well, there's a reason it's not in the meta. It's probably not going to work no matter how good you are. To some extent. So XD playing this one safe. They had picked up a lot of strong picks for themselves, such as the Joker Murad, I believe, and that we saw the Thane coming on through. But yep. Meanwhile, you see the side of Team Unknown, who had the Superman pick alongside of that, the L'Oreal, that I think is a great pick to have there, both of them, in terms of if we're talking meta. But what's your say on the two team comps coming out? Because for me, it's very much balanced.
Yeah, for me, it is very balanced as well. But we saw a Yawn getting picked up in the previous week, and it did not go well whatsoever. It may be a comfort pick, but for now, Yawn really is pretty redundant in terms of his kit, right? There is really nothing that he does better as compared to another marksman, except for standing still and shooting, which a lot of marksmen can actually do.
Well, I think he has a bit of range. He has that global presence if he's able to hit that. But if you weren't going to put Yawn on the side of Team Unknown, who would have you put into that team comp? Because it was definitely one of the last picks they had there. They had some few options available to them.
Well, I mean, Violet would be, you know, a good rival up against Joker, only because of you clear much faster. After your roll, you actually get a piercing basic attack, so that would work as well, especially if you're going up against a very clustered team comp where they're looking for fights in very tight corners, and then you can use Violet obviously to your advantage. So Violet may be a good pick then. But for Yawn, okay, yeah, granted, right? He has an ultimate that can shoot through the entire map. That is obviously, but then it's really difficult to hit. And even if you do, it doesn't deal a whole lot of damage. It is not like, say, you know, certain global ultimates that actually has a burst, but instead it is just more of like a deterrence per se.
Yeah. Well, with that, we will have to see how the Yawn plays out. We're jumping right into the first game between XD and Team Unknown. And just one more look over at the team comps. However, we see XD with an aggressive play into Team Unknown's Sage Golem. They should be able to steal that away. and it looks like they are able to do so, I believe. It ends up on Dexter playing that Zennial, and they're going to back on out, but before they do, trying to steal away a bit more jungle, and Murad was able to solo over, meanwhile, their Might Golem, so they really didn't lose anything out from that.
Yep, they definitely did not lose, haven't lost anything just yet. But this is what I'm talking about. Even through the early game, you can tell they actually did not invest all 5 players down into the invade, but instead they just utilized 4, successfully went through the invade, knew what they want, they tried to go for the spider, did not quite work out, but then they managed to actually just back off, get what they want, move on with their lives, and then further on put pressure down in whatever lane that you want to put pressure down in. So this is one thing about EXDEE Gaming, and I'm really excited to see how they will be playing out though. Of course, granted, in this particular game we have Blastoise on his key hero like that of the Alice, so we will be expecting a lot of big players coming through. But talking about plays,
yeah, there's going to be a bit poke down in this bot lane, which is the aim of the game for EXDEE. Looking at that team comp, very poke oriented. Murad trying to jump in, dealing a bit of damage, but they're able to heal that one up. No first blood just yet. And this was a question I had about EXDEE's team comp. Looking at now, although all the picks are very much per meta per se, there isn't really a front line for that team. Aside from that, the Alice, who is going to be a bit of a harass mage, just using the barrier to kind of go in there and rely on the rest of the team to just land the poke from the safety. So I think where Team Unknown will be able to maybe pull something off would be if they're able to find an engagement where they're able to get onto the back line, or just where Alice is not in the team fight, because I feel like Blastoise is going to play a big part in whether this is a make or break team comp.
Well, definitely. I mean, with the silence, with the stun, Blastoise can actually bring a lot of utility into the team fights, as with Superman as well. But we are actually forgetting the existence of Zenio. Superman actually tried going in with a charge, not quite hitting. So Zenio can actually come down from above and try to save the enemy. So a very reliable frontliner, although he will take quite some time before he actually lands. And now we see EXDEE Gaming with a very peculiar play.
Yep, EXDEE hiding in this jungle brush up on the top side of the map. They will catch that of Superman out. Not able to deal enough damage though, and it looks like they will be able to just take the farm and back away from that one. And you did mention that Zennial pick. I agree that's a great pick to put in the top lane. Not only is good at split pushing up there, is then able to rotate globally anywhere with the defensive capabilities, and I think that's definitely why EXDEE have gone on more of the damage side of things rather than the defense. And we'll have to see how it plays out. So far, they've gone for the aggression onto Abyssal Dragon. They're going to try and take this one for themselves, and they collect. There's going to be the engage coming through from Team Unknown. However, Superman going low doesn't really have anything to fight with, is taken down for the first blood, and there's going to be Team Unknown trying to get a return kill. They catch out the Joker. Dexter going to be the next one to fall, as well as Blastoise getting taken down on that backline, and Team Unknown actually able to win out in terms of kills, only losing 1 for that of 2 kills. I believe actually 3 kills in that favor.
Yep, so 3 kills went over to the side of Unknown, so not exactly the very, very clean game. I feel like every single time I watch EXDEE Gaming, I have to say that the game is not clean. Then they'll prove me otherwise, right? So they'll pick up comms, then they'll make the team, their games clean, but on top of that, now we do see that Team Unknown actually has the goal advantage. Albeit it's not, you know, a whole ton. It's not like 1,000 or 2, but it is an advantage nonetheless. But we are seeing so much pressure being placed in this mid lane as well. So EXDEE Gaming, no doubt, the previous team fight didn't come out as clean as they expected to, and mainly really is because Zenio just didn't quite make it in time anyways. So with that in mind, maybe the next time they want to engage in a full-on team fight, they might want Zenio to come down much earlier on, because Superman was down below. So that is one thing that the side of EXDEE Gaming have to reconsider coming into the next team fight.
Well, that's the thing. Superman was the one to engage it, however, and deal with a bit of damage, but he took so much in return, was the first blood of the game. It just came down to the rest of the positioning from EXDEE. Blastoise got caught out on the backline, and it didn't really bode too well for them. But they're going to dive in onto this bottom lane tower, and they take down Cux, and they're going to take the tower as well. There's going to be Metamorphosis used from that of Ulusa on the side of Team Unknown, who's on that crash, but it's really not used to the best of its ability. That tower was more than likely to go down, and now there's no steal potential for that of the Abyssal Dragon and no team fight engagement there, which is what we talked about really heavily. The side or any team that picks up a crash has to play around. However, in this case, they do have the Thane as well, but Thane has been roaming the map and helping elsewhere.
Ooh.
Gonna take the top tower, but he goes low in return. It looks like Superman probably just gonna back out this one, let the Yorn get taken down. He should be able to find the safety of his tower. So it's a tower for Yorn, fair trade, I'd say. And the fact that they're being able to trade out their bot for the enemy top, it's definitely something to say that Team Unknown aren't getting rolled on just yet. But we have to see in the mid lane as the L'Oreal is going to go very low, gets taken down, and that mid lane tower also looking very low. Now look at this rotation, the squad of the Alice, Joker, and Praetor just going through into the enemy jungle, and if Thane tries to do anything about that, it's probably going to get punished.
Yep, Yorn tries to steal or tries to aid Thane with that global ultimate, not quite hitting anyone. But now 15.2 thousand to 14.4. The side of EXDEE Gaming definitely look like themselves again, and they are definitely trying to vie in for a cleaner game per se. A lot of pressure in this mid lane, as well as the jungle. So we are seeing, you see rotations coming through from the bottom lane, from the top lane as well, into this mid lane, trying to just put down pressure. And this is the thing, the beautiful thing about EXDEE Gaming, right? They know what they want, and they will be very, very persistent in order to get whatever that they want.
However, we did see a bit of a rotation there for a second. Superman and Vaz Crash trying to be up the top side of the mid, but have to instead return to the top lane to respond to the push coming through from Zenial. Yorn, meanwhile, was looking for something, but has just gone to sitting around, keeping an eye on this Abyssal Dragon, and they will catch that out. The question is if they can steal. There's going to be jump over the wall. Abyssal still low. There's going to be the Metamorphosis, the team going to come on through, but it still goes over to the side of EXDEE Gaming, and there's going to be Kaz picking up a kill on the Thane. You can just see him over that wall with great positioning, not really being targeted himself over meanwhile, and instead there's going to be the Yorn going down. Kaz, about this positioning though, not too sure. He is going to get punished for it. L'Oreal still up, and this could be the turnaround coming through as Superman jumping onto the backline there, but there's going to be the shield coming through Alice and Clutch, and should be able to save them. No more losses going over, and that's the third Abyssal Dragon of the game going over to EXDEE. So although we looked at gold per se, there's another factor of this is to look at the levels. They managed to get that Murad actually up to level 12, and he's definitely going to be able to start dealing some damage in these close and clumped up team fights.
Yep, and one thing's for sure as well, you know, half the time it's really, really difficult to steal, like say, the Abyssal Dragon away from Joker, because of Joker's ultimate, Canned Laughter, where he plays like a laughing gas on the target hero or the target, and then he'll bounce back pretty much like a shank and run kind of scenario, and it deals plenty of damage. And so it's really, really difficult, even if the side of EXDEE Gaming do not have any form of smite. It will be really difficult for Unknown to steal anything away, and now the mid lane going down really, really quick.
Yeah, we will see that the pressure being put on by the side of EXDEE Gaming, but once again, rotation from Team Unknown coming from the top side of that mid lane. The question is if they're going to do anything about Praetor, able to continuously poke down this L'Oreal, and she might be forced back because of it, which is eventually going to allow them to collect that mid tower for themselves. But the question is if they're putting their resources in the right place, and I think so. By positioning themselves in this mid lane, they're very close to the Abyssal Dragon as it respawns and could just go for it once again. But you can see that Team Unknown have probably caught wind of that, and they know they cannot let another one to the hands of XD. But they've got two very priority objectives to worry about here. They've got the mid lane, they've got that top being pressured constantly by Zenio, who has a much easier job of joining up with his team with that ultimate. And there's going to be XD starting on the Abyssal Dragon being that third objective that we actually first talked about, and they are more than likely going to get Murad going in once again with the ultimate. He's a clean up there for the objective, but it means he's not using it for damage in team fights, and we'll have to see how this plays out. Alice with the shield for her team. They should be able to back safely to the tower, but the tower no longer existing could be opportunity for Team Unknown. But you can see Zenio with a rotation down, very easily able to turn this team fight around. There's going to be the double kill for Kaz, possibly the triple, and they are going to go on through. And he's trying to chase down that of the Crash, but he's going to get back to safety. And meanwhile, this is what I talked about prior to that team fight. Superman rotated up to respond to the pressure from the Zenio, but Zenio just ulted down to the bot lane and where the team fight was. Meanwhile, Superman on his own, and look what it's resulted in.
Yep, I mean, Superman managed to actually pick up 2 towers for himself, and that is something very good for the side of Unknown. Superman catching wind of the Darkslayer take, and now in a very dangerous position.
Something good, but I don't think it's enough, because now Cerberus just diving in under the tower cleans up the Superman, and the mid lane is already gone in response, so it was a trade for that. And you look at the gold lead that XD has gained, as well as the level advantage. It's just gone so much in XD's favor that they had to win that team fight. It was so important that if this is the turning point, I believe it will be at that when the Abyssal Dragon was taken for the side, the 4th Abyssal Dragon for XD. Meanwhile, Team Unknown with none, that just got turrets to their towers to their name, and not really many kills as they getting pressured down by the side of XD in this mid lane. Praising great positioning there with the poke. He's able to land some decent damage, and it allowed for Zenio once again to be that split pusher as he takes down bomb tower, top tower also going down. And slowly but surely, XD have gained so much control over this game. Tower by tower, Team Unknown trying to rotate and respond to these, to the aggression, the pressure, but there's nothing they can really do. They're always a step behind. Yep,
they are always a step behind, and the only towers left standing really is the high ground tower, and Murad actually goes and picks up Arpan.
Yep, in a 1v3 situation, not even because he's able to use ultimate, be untargetable while going in. Meanwhile, Zenio were able to take down the Thane, who just isn't able to tank up in the front line anymore if all the damage is being focused on him. There's going to be the engage from Zenio trying to catch him out, but the counter engage with the Metamorphosis, trying to hold on to this middle high ground tower, and they're trying just that. And you can see the Crash in the front line. Superman tries to dive in, but as soon as he does, he gets cut down by the Murad. That's going to be the high ground tower. Surely the game core to follow. XD looking for a possible push, waiting on the next minion wave, but for now, we'll back out, take objectives elsewhere, and you can see a few respawns coming up. There's only the Superman left down. Team Unknown have one chance at this to bring it back, but we'll have to see. There's so much damage going through onto the L'Oreal, pushing her back to the base, and there's going to be, once again, Thane in the front line, tanking all that damage up, but does not have the backup from his team. You can see so many low health targets on the side of XD, but they heal right back up to safety, and are going to take that second high ground tower, and they might even just, for the safety net, go for the top high ground tower. Why not? But they instead decide to focus on this core. There's going to be the defense coming through from Team Unknown. Can they do something about it? Kaz is going to take down the L'Oreal. There's Alice going super low. The defense from the side of XD Gaming is gone, and this could be Team Unknown with the pushback. But over meanwhile, Murad took down that top tower solo, and it's going to find himself in a 1v1 with the Crash. Whether he can win it out, gets caught out in the Metamorphosis, but the rest of XD have moved on to the core. It's only Superman and the Crash up, but Yawn just coming back out of base. Pain on the core, doesn't have the damage to do it, and Team Unknown are hanging on by a thread, but they are all down to nothing. The only thing standing for them is that core.
Well, living to see another day, I see, for the side of Team Unknown, and really clutch plays coming through. And just so much sustain coming out from the side of XD Gaming, especially with the ultimate of Zenu, right? Zenu jumps in, heals everyone back up. On top of that, you have the silence, you have friendship from Alice that gives people, or gives her teammate a really small health barrier, but at least a health barrier nonetheless. And this time, it is really difficult to defend against this push coming through from the side of XD Gaming. Only reason because they are now all at full health, they are all at fight ready potential, and they can really just delete anyone if they choose to. I mean, you saw Cerberus just keep going in for those temporal turbulence, picks one up, back off, comes in for another, go off, and come back in again. So for this time, really, the side of Team Unknown really have to find a very good team fight, a very, very good metamorphosis, and then from then on try to, you know, just deter the side of XD Gaming from advancing forward.
Yeah, the thing is, they have to find a team fight outside their base. Waves are being pushed in, bottom and top, and it looks like the game is closing in to an end. XD just have to go for the core if they want the win. It's as easy as that, as simple as that, but they may as well go for the fight if they're confident in it, and they're just playing around in the enemy frontline high ground. Where it used to be, Dexter gonna be the one to dive on in, trying to finish off the crystal, and they just need to do their best to push him back with the metamorphosis. But it's one hit off the core, is one hit, and they're going for the fight. There's going to be the Praetor diving past the backline, gets the hit to finish the game, and it's just XD being OP as usual. You can see that team comp, they went for such a damage heavy comp, yet not much defense, and there was one fight where that almost fell through towards the end, where the Alice did get taken down and they had to back off from that. But oh my, it is just, as always, a pleasure casting an XD match, and you can see why.
Yep, but you know, in that last team fight, the side of Unknown really had a chance, right? Very good metamorphosis used. Yon able to pick up one kill for himself, and had Praetor had the core. If the core was at full health, maybe the side of Team Unknown could have came out on top for that. You know, Alice was getting really, really low, and then the entire team of XD Gaming was really shaky by then. So the side of Unknown could have actually came out on top in the team fight, deter them, live to see another day, and hopefully able to get the Dark Slayer, get the buff, and try to, you know, a step at a time win the game. Obviously, it is a lot to ask for Team Unknown. I mean, especially of how well the side of XD Gaming is playing, but even then, nonetheless, it could have been done.
No, I totally agree with you. Yeah. I saw that happening, and I was wondering, XD decided to go for the fight. They were more than confident, but actually a bit too confident in underestimating that of the side of Team Unknown. And it was just the fact that the core was already so low that they didn't need to fight. They could just dive right in, and as long as everyone attacked the core, they were easily going to get it. But that's the fact. They went for the fight, and they almost lost it, but no one was able to push back the Praetor. I think once they used that of the metamorphosis as well as Fane, probably charging the enemy back, and you mentioned they were able to pick up a kill or two. It was just not enough CC left remaining to stop the Praetor, who was able to get through the enemy lines to get that single hit off that was enough to close out the game. But it was looking very dire and would be very much impressive for Team Unknown to make a comeback from that against a team like XD Gaming. Would definitely blow me away in terms of expectations.
Well, I mean, definitely, but XD Gaming in that game, right? Let's all be honest. We've seen how XD play. And in that game, there were multiple conflicts throughout, right? It is basically the hesitation to go in and whether or not to go in for the fight.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see. In terms of draft, it was fairly even, and I liked the draft coming out from XD. So with that, we'll see in draft number 2, which we're heading right into now, what they decide to do for themselves if they go for that similar, really high burst, high damage comp and low defense per se, in a sense. I mean, they had the Alice, they had the Zennial, and we'll see what they pick up here. But with that, I'd agree with the fact that it's just they were a bit shaky. It wasn't the XD we saw, but I believe that's because of the team comp they had.
Yep, definitely. But I hear that draft is ready, so let's just hop straight into draft and see what XD and Unknown has brought for us.
Yep. Well, while we wait,
okay,
draft,
so maybe
I
not.
believe that that's what we were expecting. But while we are expecting that, we may as well talk about it, because the draft. Okay, as we transition through the bans, I don't see the side of Team Unknown could let Superman through again. I mean, Superman ended up on their side, and they didn't get that much work out of it. And you can see XD's prioritization. They prioritize the Joker that much higher than Superman, where we've always been seeing these bans come through, where Superman has been banned. And it's either been Superman, Joker, Zephys, and sometimes Belinda's pick, which you can see Team Unknown deciding to ban out for themselves. But this time, Joker isn't going to get through for the first time today. And because of that, or actually I believe we might have seen him banned out earlier. But because of that, they're still going to go for the L'Oreal pick. And there's going to be Zephys coming on board alongside Sentinel. And in response to this, it looks like we're going to see the Superman, and that's of the... Is it
Zil? Yeah.
I actually had not casted a game with Zil yet, so this is going to be an interesting one for me.
The way I actually remember Zil, the name, the hero, is really just Dil when bad. You know, when Dil goes bad, it becomes black. So, like, Zil is purple. Okay, but anyways, ignore me. Team comms coming through from the side of Unknown. Really, really tanky. Have got very good frontliners as well as damage. So they are really relying on the burst capacity of Zil and the DPS for Arban on that L'Oreal. As for the side of XD Gaming, as you can tell, what they really want to get at is to try to have cluster team fights, and the only reason is because you have that of Natalia. Natalia just works so very well in small spaces, team fights in small spaces, as with Alice as well. But one thing's for sure, with the Zephys on the side of XD Gaming, it will be, I hope at least, a much cleaner game and much better thought out game as compared to the last.
Well, we also have that Yawn that you questioned a bit, and we, at least in the hands of Team Unknown, weren't able to see much use of it or much purpose in picking it up. But XD could show us otherwise, alongside that Natalia pick you mentioned, could be another pick that we haven't seen too much of, but could definitely surprise us coming in here. Alice on the Blastoise on the Alice, I should say. We do have once again for the defense, I believe they got Zenio as well as one of their first picks. So the side of Team Unknown, they're going with a fairly similar, I would say, in terms of balance team comp. They've got your marksmen as well as your mages for the backline, and then you've got your supports just being that of the Alice and the Zenio, and it worked out so well for them in the first match. I don't see why it will work out any different. The question could be of Team Unknown's picks. They were allowed to pick up that of the Zil, and the I believe first pick was being the L'Oreal once again. So we'll see how that works out for them.
Well, maybe for the side of XD Gaming, what they're going to try to get at is for the early game, because we saw that in the late game, Alice's potential just went down in general, and the only reason for it is because there's just no suitable frontliner as compared to, say, Team Unknown, right? Team Unknown, they've got enough CCs firstly, they've got good frontliners secondly. As for the side of XD Gaming, they have a CC, but they lack reliable frontliners. Granted, they are the much better team per se, but even then, you know, when it comes to the late game, you have enough damage, but then if you get bursted down even by the tanks or support by Team Unknown, it will be really, really troubling to go into that of the late game.
Yeah, well, I think that's what XD were able to accomplish. They played the team comp the way it should be. In the early game, you saw a lot of roaming and rotations with the squad of that being the Alice, Praetor, and I believe the Joker. And they were able to pick up kills that way because they didn't necessarily need a frontliner. They just frontlined with their damage output and that of Alice providing the shield to get them out there and get the kills nice and safely. But with that, you're right. We will have to see how they play it this game. I mentioned that's a fairly similar comp in terms of balance, and you can see the Zephyrus in their hands this time, which will also just mean that much more potential for them. But starting this game, it's interesting to see EXDEE not going aggressive. They decide to just farm up in their own jungle this time. No invading really whatsoever.
Yep, we saw a similar game like this from EXDEE when they play a much more passive early game, and it's because of Cerberus, right? Cerberus on that Zephyrus really needs the level 4. You get the level 4, you get your death from above, you get your ultimate, you jump down. It's really a very good gank mechanic for the side of Zephyrus, and it's really hard to go up against.
Early on, Superman pushing back that of Love Pain on the Natalia, getting a fair amount of damage onto them. Almost got the second pushback as well. Could have been the kill secure early on, but they were able to dodge out with the being able to blink away from that. And we will see that now there's a bit of a rotation coming through from EXDEE, and this is what I meant early on. Alice with one other member, usually the jungler from the side of EXDEE, just rotating around the map with usually the mid laner once they've got pushed up in this sense, and that's what they're going to do here at the early game. But it is a 3v3 situation, and Blastoise on that Alice could be the first one to go down, trying to avoid and run away from the Cerberus. Meanwhile, chasing down that of the Zill, but doesn't have the damage, and double kill going over to Superman. They are going to catch out the Zenio in this fight as well, away from his turret, but I don't think they have the CC to quite get the kill. However, Team Unknown will quite happily take a 2-0 lead.
Well, once again, I must repeat myself that letting Superman through, yes, you may be very, very comfortable playing up against Superman, but he is, after all, close to 100% ban. For the simple reason that he is a very, very good hero, very good initiator, and on top of that, just has got very good CC. Pushback, he basically has got 2 Valiant charges from Thane. So what would the side of EXDEE actually expect letting Superman through? So the early game will be tough, but I'm sure EXDEE Gaming would have what it takes to actually push through. I mean, after all, their team comp is really suited for that of the late game. You have Natalia, you have our favorite masochist on Natalia, and Natalia's damage really comes from cluster team fight when you chain your stun, your A into your ultimate, and then you have Alice with a silence so that the side of Unknown cannot quite do anything. So there's one thing that Startup X they have to reconsider, doing a very, very good job chasing the cars away from the Abyssal Dragon.
Yeah, and you can see that he's pushed right back under his service. Yawn maybe trying to steal away the Abyssal, but he isn't going to get it today. It goes into the hands of Team Unknown. But meanwhile, top tower has been pressured by both that of Zenio and the Natalia. They will probably get that in return. Superman rotating up, but just a bit too late, and they don't have the commitment to do so. They don't want to tank it, at least, and they're just going to leave it on a low HP for now. But with that, it brings us back to the team comps and your talk about Superman kind of being like a secondary Thane in terms of the charge allowed to him. And I look alongside that with the Crash, you would think that Team Unknown actually have a very good gank potential team comp right here. And I'd like to see that being used. Crash jumping into that bush, noticing that Alice and Natalia are there. That's the thing. EXDEE are also roaming about, so that's the cautionary factor that getting these ganks off are going to be that much harder because EXDEE are always on the move.
Yep, they are on the move, but they are basically just relying on their macro mechanics, right? So they are moving, so they have the number advantage like that in the top lane. They are now going back to the top lane to try to force a gank, and Blaze goes down.
Yep, and it's going to be the Superman falling. Really nothing he can do. 1v4. So much commitment of resources up into that top lane. But as you said, they let the Superman through, and this is their response to it. They're just going to make sure he doesn't get ahead at all, and that Zenial does instead, because at that point, Zenial has much more opportunities to get ultimate down to rotate team fights, especially if he's able to manage that lane well. And you can see Superman, he's in the mid lane, meanwhile his top is being pushed, and that tower is surely going to go down.
Well, for sure, Superman actually, Zaniel actually brings much more sustain, and team, I'll just hold my point.
On to that point, as it's going to be the engagement. There, Morpheus onto Cars, but not sure if that's the right target. Superman getting into the backline there. That's actually going to be the Zenial jumping on through, trying to save his team, and Yorn is going to get a kill in return. Natalia going very low alongside that. The Alice, everyone on EXDEE is so low, hugging their turret right now, but L'Oreal is caught out as the last one left from the side of Team Unknown. Will probably go down to the Zenial, and look at that rotation coming through from Cerberus to catch out the Zill. Great play there, and that's what I mean. The potential, the global potential that Dexter has on that of the Zenial. We've seen it before, we see it again. They're really able to help out in these team fights that happen so much around the Abyssal Dragon, and I think that's the big factor here. Superman was actually rotating to that mid lane because the team was probably pinging him or telling him, we need to get this Abyssal Dragon, because now it's fallen into the hands of EXDEE. They're taking the gold lead, and they're practically gone back up with levels, if not ahead by now. Yep,
but one thing's for sure, right? So, like I mentioned earlier on, the son of EXDEE Gaming, I may just have to hold my partner yet again.
Yeah, we'll have to see as Alice getting dived on by the Zill, but Zill gets shut down by Yorn. And now it's going to be the turnaround for the side of EXDEE, as Fane going to be the next one to fall. Crash just going to have to hide under that tower. Superman trying to get something here. He pushes the Natalia back into his teammates there, where they're able to lay down a fair bit of damage, but not able to secure the blaze on Superman, just going in so deep. However, he doesn't have the cooldowns, and he won't be able to catch up with Alice. Alice just living on the edge, and this is the fact EXDEE likes to play in that kind of playstyle, where they have quite a risky playstyle. If Alice were to go down, the rest of the team doesn't have so much defense available to them. But you can see Zenial has himself so far ahead that he has the damage and sustain damage to front line for his team, as well as some sustain for his team in that sense, and they could even rotate for an early Dark Slayer. It looks like they might just do that at 18.2k over 13.7. They've already got a lead. This would be the perfect objective to just push them over the edge. Superman and Crash didn't even take a notice of that, and instead are going to get punished as they are caught out in the top lane.
Oh dear, oh dear.
Crash probably tanky enough to survive that one though. Whether they'll just dive in and take the tower is a possibility, and he's not. He is in the Metamorphosis form, but not able to survive all the damage coming on through from EXDEE as they just move on through as a single unit, and this feels a lot more like the EXDEE we're used to seeing.
Well, yep, so I'll just quickly talk before the next fight breaks out, and this is the EXDEE, like you mentioned, is, something that we're used to seeing, right? So very coordinated, moves as a team, and knows what they want. They do not overextend, they do not... You may actually continue on this.
Yeah, we'll have to see here. I think that Dexter and Cerberus should be safe. I mean, it's the Zenial and that of the Zephyrs who can escape, but meanwhile, speaking of escape, there is none found for that of Fane. It gets caught out between the Natalia, Alice, and just death, practically. There's nothing he can do about that. They've already pushed the way down the mid. Now, it's interesting to see, EXDEE really haven't put any pressure down on the bot lane. It's just been this way that's worked out, but a lot of the fights have been going in the top here, where the focus has been, making sure they don't lose that in return, because Superman, if left alone, would be up to pressure that. And they're going onto the high ground now. And although they've only got 4 people here, Yorn is, all the meanwhile, EXDEE, you talked about not overextending. I think they're confident enough at this point that if Fane jumps into the front line like he does, no one's going to back him up, and they have the damage been enough to take him down. But look at this, it does look like Bjorn is in a bit of a fight with Superman, while the rest of the EXDEE are going to push on through. Bjorn winning that one out. He's going to be able to clean up on that initial turret, but might not even be needed. It seems like EXDEE cannot be stopped right now. They're going for the core, but we'll have to see as the respawns on Bane coming up in 3 seconds. They'll start on the core. There's going to be the man morphs, push them off. Alice low on the backline, but there's going to be the engagement. Crash jumping in, gets his shutdown onto Zenial, and now they're going to push back 4 more. Alice surely going to go down in this team fight if they get caught out, but they have the speed boost there, also saving Natalia. And with that, they get a bit of damage, and they also get the bot lane. As I was talking about, it was the one thing EXDEE hadn't focused on. So I was thinking EXDEE not looking to end the game. They didn't really, they were like, okay, we'll take what we can, but they were given so much.
Wow, that was a pretty extended team fight. A lot of risky plays coming through from EXDEE Gaming. I say risky, not greedy, for a very good reason. I think that was just a pure gamble on the side of EXDEE. You know, they just try to go in, see if they can end it even without minions, see if they are tanky enough. It didn't come through. They just wanted to fully utilize the Dark Slayer buff, and they just immediately backed off afterwards. So this is what EXDEE does half the time. And now they're moving on to the Abyssal Dragon as well. So with that in mind, EXDEE's team comp, I said it earlier on that EXDEE's team comp is just very paper, and they really need to work that early game.
Yeah, it looks like Superman once again getting caught out position. Although he has a bit of mobility, it's not quite enough to escape a whole team comp of EXDEE. So EXDEE now with the mana advantage for another 30 seconds could push through to end this one. There's only 2 high ground towers left for the side of Team Unknown. You mentioned before with that push, they also had that Darkslayer buff, and that's a big factor as to why they decided to, it wasn't greedy and it was simply just risky, and why I also mentioned they went to see how much they could get. And now we're going to go in for the second assault of that. Superman will be up in 3 seconds, so this could be a full 5v5 team fight. We see for Team Unknown, they have to hold on to this one if they want to win, if they want a chance at winning, I should say, because EXDEE very close to it. Instead, they're going to go on through this Crash with the ultimate, but no follow-up with the rest of the team. Zephyr's diving onto the backline, able to pick up a kill onto that of the Crash, and he's going to go down, putting the Zale really low. And I believe that's L'Oreal in the front line. It's EXDEE all over. They're going to win this one. They've got the core. They've got the game. 5-18, 39.5k gold over to 25.9. And you talked about that late game potential, as we saw there, Natalia just putting out immense damage. And it's just the EXDEE. They played the same team comp in terms of balance for the first match, the second match. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is something we see in the finals. They try at least for the first game.
Well, like looking at this last team fight itself, we saw that Superman is still down. Superman come back up, actually did an incredible push, cleared out the minion wave, came back. Natalia, the ultimate metamorphosis is used not in the best position at all, but now we see that Crash goes in, no follow-up whatsoever, like mentioned earlier on, but Superman comes in with the push, but takes a little too much damage, and you see Yawn in the backlines just able to put down all that damage onto the core, and on top of that, as well as all the heroes as well, Natalia is basically in her own world. There was no address of the carries at all for the side of EXDEE. Instead, a lot of times what we are seeing Unknown in the last team fight is that they just go in for the frontliners, like that of Alice, like that of Zeno, and try to take them out first, although the damage dealers are in the back.
Yeah, well, with that, we did see, in fact, it was a bit of a difference there that Crash, it's the first game, where they dived in, and once the Alice was down, there's no front line. Well, this time, they had a bigger target to worry about. The Crash was on the side of EXDEE, as well as that the Zephyrus, and that kind of front line is something to be worried about.